Good morning, everybody. I figure walkout music is an appropriate response. Post Super Bowl, you're all a little exhausted, and we could use a little energy in the room, and there's always sort of an awkward sort of walk up to the lectern when we talk. So, good morning and welcome to the first chapel in February. February, a cold, cruel, and desperate month in the world of boarding schools. It may not appear that today. It's quite beautiful, but this month is going to break you. It's going to break me, as it does every year since I've been here. This being my 8th year, you can tell I'm incredibly broken. So we're going to do a little group exercise. I'm going to say just once, February is so dark and cruel, and you're going to say, how dark is it? So February is so dark and cruel, how dark is it? You've called an Uber to get a lift from Peabody to the health center. You actually start attending chapel because it allows you to warm up on the way to the link. If there's a will, there's a way. If there's a Quizlet, there's an A. It doesn't even spark a grin anymore. That thrill of starting a paper at 11 o'clock at night that is due at 11:59, it's lost its magic. You believe that when they say the green beans in the dining hall didn't come from a can, you've got to believe it because you've got to hold on to something. It's too cold to forge your advisor's signature. You purposely throw your impact test after faking concussion so you don't have to go to practice. Your roommate's week-old gym clothes don't even smell because it's too cold for anything to spoil. You're so tired, you can't even tell people, I'm so tired. You can't steal Jerry's scooter because your hands will freeze to the handle. Shout out to my man Jerry for giving me permission to use him as a tool for a punchline to a joke. You have to defrost your egg sandwich if you take it out to the link. Your TikTok videos are just you in a dark room exclaiming your disbelief that you can see your breath indoors. Mac Miller's new album seems hopeful. Your English personal reflection journal is starting to resemble Lord of the Flies. You make a snowman if there's snow, so you have someone who is kind to talk to. Your morning routine is more efficient than a SEAL Team 6 raid, just so you can sleep one more minute. You decide that if you're going to be late, you might as well be 30 minutes late. You sleep with your laptop because it's warm. You keep a blanket and pillow in your backpack because you never know when you might get a few minutes to nap. You've watched so many TikTok videos this month, you can't speak to anybody or hold your attention for longer than 10 seconds. And you realize February is the shortest month by days, yet the longest month by feels. So, February, cold, dark, we see lower daylight, it's windy, things seem bleak. It's sometimes hard to get out of your own way. Oftentimes it can be hard to imagine that in less than a few months, we'll have warm, sun-drenched days, and the walk to class will seem fun and exciting. You'll actually smile. Heads will be held high instead of tucked deep into your jacket. These dark days in February, they have me thinking negative thoughts. And what I want to speak about today is an issue I see here at school today. And my hope is for a solution that will propel us into the spring with a renewed sense of optimism, community, and engagement. I'm a goal-oriented person. At the start of each month, I write down my goals for the month. I work back in my calendar with each week, and I try to sort of set small mini-goals to achieve that much larger goal. I think this quote by Emerson does a good job in reflecting on how I perceive whether my goals have been successful or not. And so within this quote, I think my talk really relates to improving or redeeming a social condition that exists here at school. So today, let's talk about that. In the circadian rhythm of your career here at Brooks School, you start to recognize patterns being my 8th year. Certain sayings are delivered over and over again, depending upon the season, and depending upon where you are in your career. So what I hear most often from sixth formers at this time is that Brooks used to be so much better, and it has changed so much for the worse, and the change has not been good. It's like a broken record. It's every February. That's the call I hear. And these complaints, they have a funny way of working. They can either kind of, like, there could be like a critical mass of sixth formers, and they all fall down this sort of vortex of this well of despair and it's awful. Know that what that does is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the more you complain, the worse this place seems. And eventually, this will pass. By May, you're going to feel incredible nostalgia and gratitude for the school. But right now, I get it. I get where your head is. And so now, with the month bearing down on you, it's really hard to see the good. But in reality, what that tells us as teachers, and certainly for myself, is we've done our job. You're ready to go. You've grown significantly, and so the school feels like it's too small for you now. The rules really weigh you down. And this change that you think is in your head is really just what the school is doing is evolving. Every year, the school gets better. It's iterative. We change as society changes. We move forward. We propel. This year, we'd be celebrating 40 years of women at Brooks School. So I can imagine 40 years ago at about this time when it was announced that admissions would be accepting women, there was incredible angst in the room from the boys in the room. This change, it's not going to be good for the school. But look at us now. Look at how impactful this school is as a co-educational school. Look at how much we've learned from each other. So there's incredible value in evolving and moving forward. And to make this school a more inclusive place for all, for everybody. It reminds me of our MLK guest speaker, Dr. Lissicott, who talked about that this school, when it was first conceived and designed, wasn't built for somebody like her. And my goal, and certainly our goal, is to make this a space built for everybody. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is a tradition and how we can examine traditions at our school and what they do for the community. So this is a door. Doors are really interesting in a whole bunch of ways. They even have their own god. The Roman god Janus in Roman mythology. He presided over passages, doors, gates, and endings. They're also really interesting metaphors. A door is a really cool tool for metaphor, right? We talk often in English class, and I was an English lit major, about doors opening onto something, doors closing onto something, locked doors, open doors, right? Doors that are closed, and so they're exclusive, keeping people out, and doors that are inclusive, opening and inviting. So when we think about this door, it's much more than a door. It's like an onion, right? You peel back, and there's more and more meaning to this door, this particular door, right? So this is, for those who may not know, I can't imagine there are many, this is a tradition at school, and I don't know quite when it was started, but it's called the senior door, right? And so the senior door, for those, again, who don't know, is only for seniors to go in and out of. So let's take a deeper, let's examine this, take a deep dive into this door. Because for some in this room, it's way more than just a door, right? Right? It's not just a door, because it is just a door, but it's a tool, right? It's a tool for some people to control other people. So it's a power dynamic, right? They use the tool to maintain power over somebody or some group. So the funny thing is, there's no sign on that door. So the thing that, certainly grinds my gears and many colleagues' gears is there's no sign. It doesn't say senior door. Now, I think really smartly, you don't want to put a sign on the door that excludes people. Historically, that's pretty ugly, particularly around Jim Crow laws. So let's go back to the tool and the creation and the concept. But really, it's a tool to validate power. Now, this power, there's two types of power, earned power and unearned power. And so what this door is unearned power. So another sort of saying that you hear often in the circadian rhythm of Brooks School students is, freshmen don't respect us. Seniors say that quite often. Freshmen don't respect us. And I think that's an interesting statement. And what I typically respond when people tell me that is, respect is actually earned. And so in order to earn respect, you use tools like kindness, one of our core values, empathy, caring, compassion, and leadership. Those are tools where you earn power. That's how you can make power. Now, there are a lot of unearned power dynamics in the world. And so, when you spend time, and my sort of objective with you coming out of this is to be more aware of power dynamics, power structures, and how the role of tradition can sometimes be used to maintain those power dynamics, even though they may not feel good. So when we think about this, this concept about this door, it's only learned through example, right? Because there's no sign. So let's fast forward, right? It's February now, but let's go to September. It's the second day of school for all the new third formers and incoming new sophomores and juniors at the school. It's orientation, it's beautiful out, it's awesome, and we have this third former, totally overwhelmed, right? You kind of remember, let's think back and we'll use that tool of empathy, you're exhausted, right? The orientations are endless. You're very concerned. It's dinner time, and there's like this whole fire hose of information that's been coming at you, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. Now I've got to go to the dining hall, and hopefully there's going to be somebody there to sit with. And when you're sitting in your room, kind of mustering up the strength to actually go to the dining hall, you got to wonder what's on that person's mind at that time. And typically what would be on their mind would be, simple questions, like, will I make friends here, right? There's a concern. Will I be popular? Will my teachers like me? I'm not sure. Will they care? Will I be able to do the work here? It seems pretty grueling. Will I be smart enough for this place? Or in all too many cases, you'd say, am I going to be safe here? Is this a safe place? You don't know. Will I be teased, shunned, or humiliated? That's a fear for a lot of kids coming in here, particularly if you can kind of, for those of you who are older, remember back to that time. A time of really insecure relationships, and you're just moving into this new place. As your anxiety reaches off the Richter scale, you come in and fortunately you find somebody to sit with at dinner. Typically you'll see those third formers and new students all cluster together, right? There's strength in numbers. There's like 18 to a table. So you finish your meal quickly, this third former. They get up, they're still kind of learning where to put the dishes, and they realize, I've got a dorm meeting. I've got to run out. I've got to get back as quick as possible. You're nervous, and you bust out this door. And what happens? There's three people. You have no idea who they are. They're really old. They have beards. They look like they're 40. And they start yelling at you. And you're totally overwhelmed. You're like, what is going on? I'm so confused. And they're like, hey, what are you doing? And they just start ripping at you. And your heart stops. And you suddenly feel like incredibly confused and powerless. And you can't understand what they're saying because they're all screaming. And it feels like something's really wrong, right? You're like, oh, this is really wrong. And someone, fortunately, comes up behind you who's not a senior and whispers, hey, this is the senior door. You can't go through this. And so when we use our core value of empathy in this moment, we think, can you sympathize with that person, that third former? What is that third former feeling? A sense of dread, confusion, embarrassment probably, fear and isolation. So I had a huge sense of irony wash over me once, and the reason part of this chapel talk occurred is I saw you see a tour guide go by, and often, when tour guides are asked, what's the best part of Brooks? We say our community, and it is. It's an exceptionally strong community. But it was amazing. I watched a tour guide say, yeah, our community is awesome, and this is the senior door. So it's like the irony of that we portend or we say that we're all about community, and yet we hold on to a tradition that is actually antithetical to everything that has to do with community. So on that note, in a scholarly article called Creating a School Community by Eric Schaps, he's a noted educational researcher and founder of the Development Study Center, what he says, and he talks about sort of the basics of human psychology and how, happiness derived and how, have a sense of belonging and what is community. So, and what those questions that boy was asking. These questions reveal our basic psychological needs for emotional and physical safety, for close supportive relationships, a sense of connectedness or belongingness, for autonomy or a say in what happens to us, and then a sense of competence, a belief that we're capable people and we are able to learn. These fundamental needs shape human motivation and they have major implications for learning and development. We're willing to work very hard to preserve our sense of safety, belonging, autonomy, and competence. We also bond with people and institutions that help satisfy those needs, which makes the creation of caring, inclusive, participatory communities for our students especially important. When a school meets students' basic psychological needs, students become increasingly committed to the school's norms, values, and goals. And by enlisting students in maintaining that sense of community, the school provides opportunities for students to learn skills and develop habits that will benefit from throughout their lives. So a growing body of research confirms the benefits of building a sense of community in a school. Students in schools with a strong sense of community are more likely to be academically motivated, to act ethically and altruistically, to develop social and emotional competencies, and to avoid a number of problem behaviors, including drug use and violence. So what that sort of brings to me in a nutshell is, we're all human. We all have pretty basic needs, kindness, to be loved, to be cared for. And what ends up happening when we continue on with this tradition is we kind of cut that cord for somebody. And so it ends sort of a possibility when that occurs to develop a relationship or a sort of a communal feeling between those students and that third former. And it kind of creates a division. And when you have those divisions, it impacts the community. There's a lot you can learn from people here. People have a very diverse and immense sense of talents and intelligence and things that they could share with you. And if you cut that cord, you lose out. And what ends up happening, what's interesting about, in researching why this tradition continues, the people that are most likely to continue this tradition are the ones that were harmed themselves. They're the ones that experience loss or pain, and in order to fill that loss or pain, they actually do the same thing. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. What's great about schools, and particularly Brooks, is you may not believe it, as much as we have tradition, there's very little institutional history. Things come and go really fast because you're only here for a short time. And so it only takes one class or one group of people, one group in power, to end a tradition. It's really simple. It's forgotten like that. There are hundreds of negative traditions that have occurred here at this school that I hear from alums when they come back that do not exist on this campus anymore. And that's because we've evolved. We've moved on. We're more inclusive, and we're better for it. I mean, some of the best experiences I've had on campus revolve around that sense of community and belonging. So, here we are. Now I got the good news. We got 10 hours of sun yesterday. The days are going to get longer. Puxatawny Phil, the prognosticator of weather, he predicted no more winter. So, regardless if this little rodent is correct or not, I'm all about hope. And so, I'm sure some of you in this room want to end this tradition. And I think it's your time. I haven't given this speech. I've sort of saved this one in the hopper. But I think you juniors and seniors are incredibly strong. You're incredibly bright and incredibly emotionally aware. And so I'm not sure you're going to be able to end the challenge. And I think you can. But I think certainly within the time of everybody here in this room, because you're all powerful and strong and you don't even realize it, some of you will end this tradition. And so the best thing I can think of when I think about this is you all have incredible power and you don't even know it. That's my surprise for you. You're part of a boarding school, and only of all the high school students in the United States right now, you're 0.1% of all high school students in America. You're incredibly fortunate. You're incredibly smart. You're incredibly gifted. You're going to go off from here and do amazing things. Alumni come back all the time. Whether it's reunions or we go out and meet, my wife and I go out and meet alums at alumni events. They're blown away when they come here and see what has happened to their school, how amazing it is, how different it is, how inclusive it is, how strong, how smart you all are. A lot of them feel like that you are leaps and bounds above them. And what you really are people that are standing on the shoulders of those alumni. By the time you all graduate, there'll be 4,000 alums, Brooks alums, all like you, And it's an incredibly powerful and strong network. But right now, this is the secret, you all have the power. You have the power to affect change. You can do anything here. You can change anything you want. And so that's when I feel like, you will do it and you will succeed. So wrapping up, what I want to see from you sixth formers and certainly you fifth formers and all of you in the room is when you come back for your fifth year reunion and we meet down in the tent and we shake hands and we hug and we talk about some pretty funny things that happened here. I hope you come back to a place where you're like, we did it. We changed this place. It's better. We made it better. We left it better than we found it. Thank you very much.